Hi, Assalamualaikum. My name is Yandis Bin Yusran. So for today's presentations, I will present about the impact of financial liquidity and leverage on financial performance of property and real estate companies in Malaysia. So the first one is which is the introductions of the thesis, which is one of Malaysia most intriguing industry is property and real estate, which is where the market trends are anticipated to be favorable. Aside from the difficulties the Malaysia real estate industry has encountered recently, the factors such as falling interest rate, rising populations, and the fast constructions of new structure have made Malaysia the preferred locations for the real estate stock investment activities in worldwide. So next is the background of the thesis, which is, for example, based on the Umar and Muhammad 2018, financial leverage is among the effective strategies for a firm to fulfill its goals and increase shareholder wealth. And according to Ibenta 2005, liquidity is a company's capacity to meet their short-term maturity obligations, which is liquidity and leverage typically the company's profit growth. These two variables contribute to the measurements of corporate financial performance, since many businesses focus is directed to managing the continuous obligations and operational, as well as the long commitment as a crucial component of a company's capital sources. Liquidity and leverage are the key problems that and the critical topic that industry frequently dealing with. So the problem statement of the thesis which is the several studies on the impact of liquidity and leverage on a business success in other nations. There are still an inadequacy of clarifications of issue, specifically in the Malaysia real estate business. As a result, this research sought to investigate financial liquidity and leverage on financial performance of property and real estate Malaysia using 5 years accounting period, which is from 2016 until 2020. So next is the research objective, which is the first one is to determine the impact of the liquidity on the company's performance, and the second one is to determine the impact of leverage on the company's performance. And for the scope and limitation of the study, is this research seeks to analyze the impact of financial liquidity and leverage on the financial performance of property and real estate in Malaysia, and it only focuses on real estate companies in Malaysia. So next is a literature review, which is we use a performance and agency theory, which is means according to Farmer and Jensen agency theory, and identifies the relationship where principal called shareholder delegates works to other parties, which is called agents. And next is we use real estate and property industry in Malaysia, which is a property type and geographic diversifications has attracted a substantial amount of research in recent years. Next is financial liquidity and firms performance, which is financial liquidity is the condition in which a company's assets may be swiftly and readily sold for cash, doing so at the cheap cost and doing so with a little price impact, which is from Bolton and Allen 2004. And last but not least, the financial leverage and firms performance in the literature review, which is it means financial leverage is a method of managing a company's finances is in which borrowed money is used to make a money so that the return on the investment is high as possible. So this is our conceptual framework, which is to study if the financial liquidity and the financial leverage have effect to the financial performance of the company. So next is for the data and methodology, which is this chapter will determine or use the technique or strategy for identifying, processing, selecting, and analyze any material. So the first one is data sources and segregations level, which is the data sampling. We use 10 properties and real estate listed in Bursa Malaysia, and the sources of data we actually collected from the annual report of the company and online database such as Infinitive and other several journals. So next is the data collections, which is the study data come from the secondary sources, which is this research is based on the quantitative data. The data is derived from the annual report and the financial statement of 10 property and real estate firms in Malaysia, which is the listed in Bursa. So for the dependent and independent variable, we choose financial liquidity and financial leverage will be our independent variable, which is the current asset ratio, and debt asset ratio and time interest earned will be our independent variable, and for the financial performance, which is the return on asset, will be our dependent variable. So next is the hypothesis development and testing, which is we assume that hypothesis 1, the current ratio has a huge impact on the return on the ROA of the real estate and property in Malaysia, and hypothesis 2, the debt ratio of Malaysia and real estate and property companies has a major impact on the ROA, return on asset, and the hypothesis number 3 is the time interest earned ratio has a big influence on ROA. So the empirical procedure, which is the ROA equal to BO plus current ratio and the debt asset ratio and time interest earned. So this is our flow of research for static panel analysis, which is we will go from the problem statement to research methodology, data components, natural log transformations, and panel unit root test, and then we will go to the BPLM test and Houseman specification test, fixed effect, and the other three, which is multicollinearity, heteroscedasticity, and serial correlations. And only heteros on this study will be corrected. And last but not least will be conclusions and recommendations. So next is the finding and discussions. So first one is the Houseman. So why the study go for the Houseman test? Because the BPLM result, which is the p-value less than 0.05. So we running the BPLM test, then we running the Houseman, which is the p-value also below 0.05. And next we will go to the fixed effect model, and also we'll go to the VIF, which is the VIF is below than 10, which is it's good, it's not suffered from the any threat. And also for the heteroscedasticity, the p-value which is below 0.05, which is they are most suffered and needs retreatment. And next is the serial correlations, which is the result is not suffered from any threat, so no need for any treatment, only for the heteroscedasticity. So this is the static panel data analysis, which is the result and the discussions from the data. So a detailed analysis in the table reveals that one of the three independent variables are significant at the 3% level, and with one of them showing a positive value of coefficients. Time interest earned is the positive signs of the coefficients being significant at 0.0347%, and which implies that increase in 1% will raise the ROA, return on asset variable returns, by the 0.0347%. Furthermore, the VIF test outcome shows as the random effect model does not have the multicollinearity and serial correlations problems, because the VIF is below 10, and which is however the probability of 0.8079 respectively. However, the model requires the cluster of the heteroscedasticity to be treated because it suffered the p-value which is shows below 0.05. However, with significant correlations coefficients of 0.281% and 5% respectively, differences in current ratio and debt asset ratio factors have negative effect on the return on asset, whereas it means that for every 1% increase of these variables, the return of ROA decreased by 0.0281% and 5.508% respectively. Okay, last but not least, for the conclusions, the total effect of financial liquidity and leverage on the financial performance of real estate and property in Malaysia is the main emphasis of our study, which is concluded. And according to the study, just one element, which is the time interest earned, have a substantial influence on real estate and property on return on asset firms, which is the ROA. However, two additional factors, which is current ratio and debt asset ratio, have no substantial influence on ROA, which is the dependent variable. Okay, so for the recommendations for future research, which is the recommendations one is to include as many as company as possible to determine the result. So by the increase about the companies, which is it will also increase the variable and also the independent variable. So that's why in the recommendations too, we suggest to add more variable. So that's all for me about the presentations of the study, and thank you.